I'm not making this up either. This may be the most important speech I've ever made. ... So let's check it out.
May be the most important speech I've ever made.
I just said that. Jeez.
I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place.
He's like 1 in 40 right now in court.
Long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months. And
What up, Winch?
bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time, especially when you have to prove almost nothing to exercise our greatest privilege, the right to vote. As president, I have no higher duty than to defend the laws.
First of all, I wish it was a right.
That is why
It's not a right. It's not a right currently. We need to make it a right. Cement that thing inside the Constitution so that states have to bend over backwards to make it easier to vote instead of harder. We had the Voting Rights Act at one point in time, but that wasn't enshrined in the Constitution. Pod friend.
To protect our election system, which is now under coordinated assault and siege. For months,
It's under coordinated assault and siege by you.
warned that we should not declare a premature victory. We were told repeatedly that it would take weeks
I can't wait to see all the evidence Bill Barr
for the
has.
winner to count the absentee ballots and to verify the results.
I mean, he came out yesterday and said there is no evidence, so...
Don't campaign. We don't need you. We've got it. This election is done. In fact, they were acting like they already knew what the outcome was going to be. They had it covered, and perhaps they did, very sadly for our country. It was all very, very strange. Within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint a winner, even while many key states were still being counted. The constitutional process must be allowed to continue. We are going to defend the honesty
The best evidence.
by ensuring that every legal ballot,
I want to know what's the chances that Barr is fired within the
no
next week.
illegal ballot is counted.
What do you guys
It's not
think?
just about honoring the votes of 74 million Americans who voted for me. It's about ensuring that
What about the
Americans
80 plus million Americans that voted for
this
Biden?
election and in all future elections. Today I will detail some of the shocking irregularities, abuses,
Oh, this should be
and
good.
fraud that have been revealed in recent weeks. But before laying out just a small portion of the evidence we have uncovered, and we have so much evidence,
So much evidence. The best
mail-in
evidence.
balloting scheme that Democrats systematically put into place that allowed voting to be altered, especially in swing states, which they had to
Please
win.
get back to me.
They just didn't know that it was going to be that tough because we were leading in every swing state by so much,
I mean,
far greater than they ever thought possible.
the MAGA supporters are already turning on him. We have a video by Lou Dobbs that we're going to play here in just a little bit. So you know that's going to be fun. Lou is always fucking unhinged.
While it has long been understood that the Democrat political machine,
We're not going to make it through this whole video, by the way. It's like 45
from
minutes.
Detroit to Philadelphia to Milwaukee, Atlanta, so many others.
We've got too much stuff to cover in this
What
show.
changed this year was the Democrat
Like a Hungarian anti-LGBT politician
mail out
that got caught in a sex orgy. That's going to be fun.
of ballots sent to unknown recipients with virtually no safeguards of any kind. This allowed fraud and abuse to occur on a scale never seen before. Using the
I mean, I don't have to point out that mail-in ballots are hard to commit fraud with. There are several states that conduct their elections entirely by mail-in ballots. You have to match the signatures on the other side. A lot of them have these envelopes. You have to put them in and then put them in another envelope and seal that envelope. You're going to go through the whole ass thing? God. I don't know if I can take him talking for 46 07. God damn.
The pandemic as a pretext. Democrat politicians and judges drastically changed election procedures just months and in some cases weeks before the election on the 3rd of November. Very rarely were legislatures involved, and constitutionally they had to be involved. But very, very rarely, and you'll see that as we continue to file our suits, it's constitutional.
There's more suits coming?
Incorrect.
How many times are you going to lose?
Many states such as Nevada and California.
By the way, the lawyer I couldn't name yesterday on the show, Jenna Ellis. I followed her on Parler just a few minutes ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that girl's name.
Whether they were dead or alive, they got ballots. Other states such as Minnesota, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
I'm sure some dead people got ballots. That doesn't mean they voted, you shithead.
Sending absentee ballot request forms to all voters on all rolls. It didn't matter who they were. This colossal expansion of mail-in voting opened the floodgates to massive fraud. It's a widely known fact that the voting rolls...
That's not evidence, kiddo. That's allegations.
...eligible to vote, including those who are deceased, have moved out of their state, and even are non-citizens of our country.
Now, I've went over this. People that moved out of state, the ballots that he challenged in Arizona turned out to be military families. They weren't living in Arizona because they were stationed somewhere else, but their permanent address was Arizona. And Trump challenged those ballots. When the president says it, it's evidence. And when the president does it, it's not illegal.
Country. Beyond this, the record...
He is not a crook.
Wrong addresses, duplicate entries, and many other issues. This is not disputed. It has never been disputed.
I'm disputing you right now, motherfucker.
States have more
Tune into the Troll Patrol. You'll see me dispute it. Come on, Trump.
Voting age citizens.
It'd be awesome if I could get him to call in the way he does like Fox and Friends of a morning.
All of this is evident.
Oh, you know what? We called that pastor last night.
Could not confirm the residency of more
I
than
never got a call back.
100,000 people, but repeatedly refused to remove those names from its voter rolls before the election. They knew why, nobody else did. I knew why. They're illegal voters. It is a travesty that in the year 2020,
his makeup looks better this
have
time.
any means of verifying the eligibility of...
Also, this looks like it's pre-recorded with these camera cuts and shit. That seems odd. Was he not giving this speech live?
Those who cast ballots in an election and such an important...
His hair looks better too. It had gone awfully gray there for a little while.
Whether they live in the state or whether they are even American citizens. We have no idea. We have in all swing states major infractions.
No idea.
Or outright fraud.
No way to verify either.
Votes. Then we need...
It's not like there's a thing like a whole registration of voters that you could check it against.
Election night. They ultimately had us miraculously losing by 20,000 votes. And I can show you right here that...
Oh, he's going to pull out a chart. Taking his cues from Katie Porter, who we're going to watch a video of here in a little while.
At 3:42...
Big dumps.
There was this. It was a massive dump.
A massive dump!
Mostly Biden. Almost all Biden. And
Yeah, mail-in ballots are probably going to do that
where did it come from?
in an urban
It
center.
went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. And that's right here. That's at 3:42 in the morning. That's Wisconsin. A terrible thing. Terrible, terrible thing. But we will have far more, many times more, than the 20,000...
Who made that graph for him? He doesn't often use visual
return the
aids.
state. If we are right about the fraud,
You're not.
Joe Biden can't be president. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of votes. We're talking about numbers like nobody has ever seen before. Just as an example, in certain states, we'll be down by, let's say, 7,000 votes. But we'll find later on 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 discrepancies.
He's just pulling this all out of his ass.
And
Speaking
that
of massive dumps.
went through when they were not allowed to be seen by Republican poll watchers because the poll
That's not true.
watchers were locked out of the building. Or people that innocently came.
I'll try to refrain from correcting him as we go along because we'll be here all fucking
excited
night.
About their vote. They were happy. They were proud to be citizens of the United States of America. And they went up and they said, I'd like to vote. And they were told that they can't vote. I'm sorry, they were told. I'm sorry. You've already voted by mail-in ballot. Congratulations. We received a ballot, so you can no longer vote. They didn't know what to do. They had no one to complain to.
If something was to happen, they do have someone to complain to. There's election fraud hotlines. There are administrators at the polls.
Many people complained and complained.
And if something like that were to happen, you ask for a provisional ballot.
And in a lot of cases, they filled out a provisional ballot, which was almost never used, but in virtually every case was a vote for Trump. In other words, they went in to vote, and they were told that they voted. And they didn't vote. And they left, and they felt horror.
Horror.
They lost respect for our system. And this happened tens of thousands of times all over the country.
Now this is just doing more to drive a wedge into the Republican Party.
People not even knowing if these people were going to show up. And when they did show up,
And help disenfranchise the voters that they're going to need to hold the Senate come January 5th in Georgia.
that's very suspect.
So keep it up, Trump. I'm rooting you on.
With the turn of a dial or the change of a chip, you could.
And I wonder how much of this
and the vote
speech
goes to Biden.
is a result of yesterday's announcement by William Barr.
You have to go to paper. Maybe it takes longer. But the only secure system is paper
I'm down with that. Let's go to paper ballots.
that nobody understands, including, in many cases, the people that run them. Although, unfortunately, I think they understand them far too well. In one Michigan county, as an example, that used Dominion systems, they found that nearly 6,000 votes had been wrongly switched from Trump to Biden. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what we caught. How many didn't we catch?
How many times has he told porn stars that just the tip?
Are there thousands? We just got.
But as I understand it, there's not much past the tip.
But we found numerous glitches that evening. 96% of the company's political donations went to Democrats, not surprisingly. And frankly, when you look at who's running the company, who's in charge, who owns it, which
Just
we
the tip is all he has.
where are the votes counted, which we think are counted in foreign countries, not in the United States, Dominion is a disaster. Election authorities in Texas
You are a disaster.
deployment of Dominion systems due to concerns about security vulnerabilities and the potential for errors and outright fraud. Every district that uses Dominion
God, we're only 11 minutes into this. Yeah, I'm not going to make it 45 minutes.
and carefully investigated, but not only for the future.
Is this all he's going to talk about?
We're worried about the
We
present.
have a national crisis going on right now, and this motherfucker is giving a speech from the White House about how he's been
Every
wronged.
state house in the United States, which they weren't expected to do. We went up to 16 seats illegally in the swing states alone.
Oh, we skipped ahead 7 minutes.
The results
Still
of
talking about the election.
swing states must be overturned and overturned immediately. Some people say that's
Only in the swing states.
too harsh. Well, does that mean we take a president.
Now, the Bill Barr thing yesterday, that's been him meeting with, the Republicans, Mitch McConnell, people that actually wield power in the Republican Party, and saying, yep, we're done. Trump is no longer useful to us.
But they don't want to talk about it.
So I'm assuming that Trump is completely on his own right now.
A total catastrophe. But we're going to show it, and hopefully the court...
Skip ahead to 25 minutes. What's he talking about?
Not all have been beaten down and disparaged. They just disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to them. Why aren't they active? Why aren't they involved? There's so much to be involved in. The corruption is so rampant. They just couldn't take it anymore. They were threatened by Democrats with impeachment, and horrible things were said about them, and they're good people. Even recently, the head of the GSA was hounded and harassed.
Because she wasn't doing her job. This entire speech is going to be about
been before.
How wrong he's been in the election.
What can I say? We caught Comey cold. We caught McCabe cold. We caught them all. We're still waiting for a report from a man named Durham, who I have never spoken to and I have never met. They can go after me before the election as much as they want. But unfortunately...
This is a man who is incredibly scared of what is getting ready to happen to him once he leaves office. We're going to talk about some of those things here in just a little bit.
So who knows if he is ever going to even do a report. But if you look at the lies and the link...
All right, 30 minutes in. What's he talking about?
We should ask for it. Can you believe this? These are not the actions of people who want fair elections. These are the actions of people who want to...
The coronavirus is raging all across the country. This motherfucker gave a 45-minute press conference speech. It wasn't a press conference. Also, I believe this is totally pre-recorded.
Is you are trying to encourage, enable...
About how everybody is out to get him.
It is important for Americans to understand that these destructive changes to our election laws were not a necessary response to the pandemic. The pandemic simply gave the Democrats an excuse to do what they...
Son, you don't know shit about necessary responses to a pandemic. You dropped the ball. Let's go about 35 minutes in.
...the status, and register they did in levels that don't exist. In Wisconsin, there are approximately 7...
And this is just all shit that he's heard on OAN, Newsmax, and to an extent, Fox.
In Georgia, 9 observers have testified to seeing countless irregular ballots without the creases or typical markings indicating that the ballots did not arrive in...
We played that video that was on OAN, that woman, talking about how the ballot looked weird and shit. That's what he's quoting, some nut job poll worker that OAN went and found, talking like, oh, this box didn't look right. We watched 10 minutes of that video. No proof. Just the ballots didn't look right to me. 40 minutes in.
State law. You're not allowed to do that. It has to be approved by the legislature. A judge can't do it. A state can't do it. An official can't do it. The only one that can do it is the legislature.
Yes, we can.
This is clear. They were not verifying signatures because they know the ballots have not been filled out by the voters in whose names they were cast. In other words, people filled them out that had nothing to do with the names on the ballot. A simple recount of the ballots under these circumstances only compounds the fraud. The only way to...
We've had 2 recounts and an audit in Georgia.
Conduct a full review of the envelopes in the relevant states. You will find that many of them, tens of thousands, have fraudulent signatures. A full forensic audit is required to ensure that only legal ballots from lawfully registered voters that were properly cast are included in the final count. This election is about great voter fraud.
This election has been about your desperation to hold on to power, to prevent investigations into you and your crooked ass family.
About ballots that poured in, and nobody but a few knew where they came from, but they were counted, and they weren't for me. It's about big leads on election night, tremendous leads where I was being congratulated.
His bald spot is bigger than mine. Maybe I should look into doing the Trump come over so I don't have to wear a bandana anymore. I'm actually amazed at how good it looks. It wasn't looking very good the other day. I think hairdressers were afraid to get around him.
For a decisive, easy victory. And all of a sudden, by morning or a
I
couple of
might.
days later, those leads
Aw.
rapidly evaporated. It's about numbers of ballots that...
This is the same thing he was talking about 25 minutes ago in this speech.
It's about machinery that was defective. Machinery that was stopped during certain parts of the evening, miraculously to open with more votes. It was about
The most important speech he's ever given has been nothing but a retread
this election.
of conspiracy theories from OAN and
I don't
Newsmax.
mind if I lose an election, but I want to lose an election fair and square.
It's like he just went through all my Q supporting friends on Facebook and took all their posts, and he's just reading them one by one.
And we have no choice to be doing that. We already have the proof. We already have the evidence, and it's very true.
Parler wrote this speech for him.
And even judges so far have refused to accept it. They know it's true. They know it's there. They know who won the election.
Judges he has appointed
Say,
have laughed him out of court.
our country needs somebody to say you're right. Ultimately, I am prepared to accept any accurate election result. And I hope
Obviously not.
is as well. But we already have the proof. We already have tens of thousands of ballots
It is a month later.
to overturn
Tomorrow will be a month exactly since Election Day. All he has done
for the highest office.
is complain and whine like a gigantic man baby.
Every reasonable American should be able to agree, based on what we have already documented, that we need a systematic analysis of the mail-in ballots to review the envelopes.
I don't agree,
It's about the signature.
but I guess I'm not a reasonable American
We can only review the envelopes, and that
because
will-
I'm not a Trump
This
sycophant.
is the absolute minimum we should expect. This is not just about my campaign, although it has a lot to do with who's going to be.
It is absolutely all about
It's
you.
about restoring faith.
That's why you're wrecking the Republican Party,
American election.
especially
This is
in
about
Georgia,
democracy and the sacred rights that
to try to get what you want. You don't care about the Republican Party. You don't care about the country.
nothing is more urgent or more important. The only ballots that should count in this election
Nothing is more urgent or more important. Are we up to 260,000 deaths yet from coronavirus? We're on the precipice. 2,400 plus people died yesterday from coronavirus. But this asshole makes a speech about how nothing is more urgent than his subversion of our democracy.